Eric Robinson is a character for the Blue Jackets, I think is the best way to put it. But how effective is he on the ice? Is he a piece of the future? And what do we think about Eric Robinson as a whole? We're going to be talking about all of that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and ours, Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm joined, of course, by my co-host, Hayden Houthorne, and today we are going to be talking all about Eric Robinson. But before we do that, I just want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, over on YouTube and also on SiriusXM. Hopefully you guys are all having a pretty good Memorial Day weekend and a good Memorial Day, enjoying the time off work. But we have a podcast for you. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Eric Robinson, who I personally have been very critical of Eric Robinson this season, and I don't know how warranted that was, or if that was just me putting my frustrations about this season on a player, again, like we've talked about a lot in the past couple of season reviews, playing above his station. So let's get into it. Eric Robinson had 13 points this season?
24 points.
He had 24? Yes,
24 points. He had 12 goals and 12 assists.
Yeah. Which is immediately much better than I thought. I believe that's a season high for him. What do you think of Eric Robinson as a player?
Fast. He's fast. He's been fast. That's like what we know him as. We know him as this fast, energetic sharp left wing shot from time to time. He's a guy who cashes in when he gets opportunities, it seems like. He had a hat trick this past season, Jay. But then there's just long periods where he's non-existent. Like, it's hard to believe that he played 72 games this year, only had 24 points. Like, if he had 24 points in 30, or 40 games, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. But he played 72 games this year. Like, where did he go? Where does he go? He's there in moments and scores cool goals, cool big momentum goals in games. It feels like he always has those quick two steps that gets him that speed, that McDavid speed, but then he just disappears for all these games. So I don't know what to think about Eric Robinson. It's so hard because you know the goals in your head, but then you look at the stats and you're like, why is he playing all these games and not adding up more of what I'm seeing?
Yeah, it's such a bizarre, because like you say, his thing is fast. If you describe Eric Robinson in one word, fast. And I call him Stonehands Robinson on the podcast occasionally, because like when his hands catch up to his feet, I think he's going to be a real threat. But I've been saying that for like 4 seasons now, and I don't know that they're gonna. I think he might just be fast, which is good.
Fast is good.
Like it's not the worst. I would take a fast player that can't score over a slow player that knows how to score, I think. I think he's a good penalty killer because of that speed. I think he is opportunistic. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone blowing the zone and then thought, oh, that's definitely Eric Robinson. You know, he does it a lot. I just don't know that the rest of his game translates to being much higher in the lineup than he is right now. I just looked up because you said he played 72 games this season, and like, okay, this team was so injured, and so a bunch of guys didn't play as much as they should have. But like looking at forwards on this team, the only forwards that played more than Robinson this season in all situations: Johnny Gaudreau, Boone Jenner, Jack Roslovic, Kent Johnson, Sean Corrali, Patrick Laine. That's it. So he had the 8th most ice time of any of the entire forward core. But to my mind, he's maybe the 12th or maybe the 11th or 12th best forward on this team. So that's where the disconnect comes in for me.
I don't think that's true where his ceiling is at. That might be true where he's actually at, Jay. That might be accurate. 12th best on this roster. But I feel like his ceiling, Jay, could be top 6. Like if he could just do what he does in those games where he gets hat tricks, like he is such a disruptive left winger who's 27 years old now. Like in my eyes, he should be our Matthew Tkachuk. He should be our Rat. He should be our speedy forward that's scoring big-time goals and doing damage on the boards and using that speed and playing competitive hockey. And I want him to be all those things, and I think he can be. Where does he go in these games where he's not doing those things?
I think he's being misused, is what it is. I think he's being deployed as a checker when he's not that. I don't know that he's a top 6 guy. I don't know. He's and like 27 is not old in any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like once you hit, and we've talked about this with regards to a couple of other players who are kind of in that age bracket. If he hasn't shown us more by now, I don't know that he has more to show us. I could see him on the third line. I think if he's higher than the third line, I think there's a problem with depth on this team. I would love to say, yeah, Eric Robinson could be in the top 6, but I look at the top 6 forwards that this team has, and I'm like, no, Eric Robinson can't touch any of these guys. I would, like I said, and we talked about this a little bit kind of off mic. I want to like Eric Robinson so much more than I actually do. I think his game is really interesting. I think, like I said, great penalty killer. He's got that speed. Like you said, had a hat trick this season, which I'd forgotten about until you mentioned it, which I think tells you how kind of memorable
it was. A empty netter
player.
Empty netter.
It still counts.
Boone Jenner dog walked a guy.
I've scored 3 goals total, and none of them were against goalies. But like in terms of his penalty killing, like I have no issues with that. I think his game is built for that kind of play. I think you can't spend a lot of money on players who are not getting the job done at even strength. There's a lot of talk about guys being power play merchants, or you have guys on the team just for penalty killers. But like, I don't know, to me, Eric Robinson is a depth piece that kills penalties and doesn't really do much else.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like that is all he does on a night in, night out basis, but he does have goals in games in play. He's scored goals in playoff games for the Blue Jackets in the COVID year against Tampa Bay. Like he's been productive on this team in moments. And I'm just wondering, this past year, did he get a whole lot of top 2 line shakes? You said he was 8th in ice time, but 12th in points and forwards. That sounds about right, I guess. Like, yeah. So if he's getting, I guess that is slightly below what he should be producing. I agree. He's, for a guy that's making $1.6 million this upcoming season, he should be doing more. He should be getting at least half a point a game, which would be 35 points in 72 games, and he only had 24. So I'd like a little bit more out of him.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this in a second. He's a player that I think is going to be really interesting to see what the new coach does with him. Because I think that there is a world where a new coach comes in and manages to get something more out of Eric Robinson than we've seen. But he's under team control for one more season. And after that, we'll see where it goes. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But we can talk about whether Eric Robinson does he have a future with the Blue Jackets? Does he have, what's his next contract going to look like? So we'll talk about that in just a second. First, I've got to tell everyone about eBay Motors, because for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage, look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors, and with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. It's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back to Locked on Blue Jackets. I'm Jay Foster. This is Hayden Houseon. We are talking about Eric Robinson. Under team control for one more year at 1.6 million, and is then an unrestricted free agent. I wonder if he is a trade deadline casualty for the Blue Jackets this season, depending on where they are in the standings. The Blue Jackets could contend for the playoffs this season. I don't think it's super likely, but they could. My money is the Blue Jackets will be sellers at the deadline. And I think Eric Robinson is going to be a perfect player to go to a team like Tampa Bay, to play on their fourth line, to play like 7 minutes a night, and to thrive.
He's a player that can do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. Like, that's just, he's fast. He can score big time goals. He has a good, sharp left wing shot. He can do damage. His assist numbers should be up. Yeah, can he score? He can score 12 goals a season in 72 games. I need him to have more points, because there's 2 ways to get points, or there's 3 ways to get points. You can score a goal, you can make a pass, or you can make a pass to the guy that makes the pass. So he needs to do one of those things more often if he's going to be a full-time guy in the future, Jay. I feel like he needs to do more. 1.6 million isn't bad for a guy like him, because he does provide value. I think he could provide value on a Stanley Cup winning team. Like you say, he would be good with Tampa Bay. I want the Blue Jackets to be in Tampa Bay's position at the trade deadline this upcoming season. I want that. I want him to be a productive guy for this team. And I think he can be. He just needs to be more consistent somehow. He needs to work on keeping his head up and looking for a pass more often. I don't know. I'm not a hockey expert. I don't know what he needs to do, but hopefully whoever our next coach is, Jay, hopefully he can pull that out of him, because I think it's there, but I haven't seen it yet. And if there's any time for him to prove it, it's in a year where he has an expiring contract.
Yeah, exactly. This is a big year for him. I've just pulled up some comparable contracts. So guys that are kind of making about the same kind of money and are about the same age. Would you rather have, for example, an Eric Robinson, or would you take Josh Archibald from the Edmonton Oilers? Would you take Rocco Grimaldi from the Predators? Would you take Rem Pitlick from Montreal? You know, it's once you start getting, in my mind, once you start getting kind of above that million mark, then it's kind of, the contract becomes more important. And yes, the cap is going to go up. The cap will increase, maybe not by much, but it'll increase a little bit. And I think for 1.6 million, I want more from Robinson than what he gave us this season. Like, I think you're right. I think 12 goals is about as good as it's going to get for Robinson. I would love to see him get more assists.
But who is he playing with? If he's playing with Emil Bemstrom, like, that guy's not tucking it very often, you know? So, like, I don't blame him if he's not scoring, because he's passing over to 52 on the other side of the ice. But, I don't know. He needs to be better at passing. The assist numbers have to be up. Like, you can't be this fast, disruptive player and not be getting a few more secondary assists.
I think that's what's frustrating, is that his game is built to score goals. And I don't know how you take that speed And because a lot of his scoring is on the rush, is, it's breakaways. It's, he's the first player in the zone and the other team's still chasing him. And that's when he scores. That's a lot of his goals are scored like that. I don't know how you adapt his game to being more of a playmaker without losing the things that make him an effective player. So it's kind of a weird double-edged sword. He needs to shoot less and pass more. But if he's the only guy in the zone, who's he passing to?
He has that like long, explosive speed. Like he has that long stride speed, kind of that good on a 2-on-1 rush. Yeah. The perfect speed you want for that. But does he have the power play 5-on-4 quick twitch in the zone speed? Can he move the puck around? Can he keep his head up? And can he be productive in that form too? Matthew Tkachuk, he has the long stride speed and he has that quick twitch speed, like on the boards and stuff and on the power play. If he can add that somehow in this offseason, he can be the missing piece to a Stanley Cup winning team. Like he has the athletic ability. He has the health. He's logging 72 games a year, Jay. It's like any player that's playing that many games, can we squeeze more out of these guys? Yeah.
I wonder if the solution is to put him on a line, take him off the line. So he played on a line with Mathieu Olivier and Sean Corrali this season, and that was the most played line for the Blue Jackets. They got the most ice time as a trio than any other trio on the Blue Jackets, which that's a whole other problem that we've talked about at length. Take him off that line. I don't think that line is working. I think that line has potential, but I think I wonder if you put Eric Robinson on a line with a guy like Liam Foudy, who has also struggled in this league and has struggled to score goals. And, it took him, 70-something games to score his first NHL goal, and then he scored 5 in the next 10. He's also fast as hell. I wonder if you put those two on a line together, get literally anyone else to play center, and see if you can break those two guys together. And then immediately you're like, okay, well, who do I focus on? Do I focus on Robinson? Do I focus on Foudy? That to me feels like it could be a real successful third or fourth line for this team is Robinson, Foudy, and let me look at the Blue Jackets roster to see who our centers even are. I wonder if
Cole Sillinger, yeah.
I wonder if that's an option, get Cole Sillinger some of that confidence back. He doesn't have to. He just has to be able to keep up with those guys. Cole Sillinger is the most talented player that I've just said there out of those three, but that could be the key to him getting his groove.
What about Leo Carlson?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's experimental. Line, just like to start the season, opening night. That might be fun.
Yeah, there's options here to get the most out of Eric Robinson. And I think it's definitely going to come down to coaching. It's going to come down to who's even on this team in October. But honestly, looking at the futures of this team, I think you let Eric Robinson go after next season.
Yeah, I don't know what his value is going to be. It just all depends on this year, Jay. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. He's a very, very interesting player because 27 is old-ish, but it's still it's not old, he could go on somewhere else and just, if he can just add that consistent piece, I don't know what it is. I don't know which coach, which person in his life it'll take to pull what he brings in certain moments and certain games out of him on a nightly basis. If they can just do that, you have a guy that's, in the conversation for an NHL All-Star, bid every year because he's just that good. In terms of his long stride speed up the ice, because he can put any defenseman in this league shaking in their boots just because of how fast he is.
There are very few NHL players, I think, that have that straight line speed. I think there's him, there's Dylan Larkin, there's Connor McDavid.
McKinnon.
Maybe Cale Makar probably could keep up with him, but apart from that, Eric Robinson has a lot of flaws in his game, but that straight line speed, I think, is his meal ticket. So in a minute, we'll kind of wrap all this together, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of what grade we're going to give Eric Robinson And we'll talk a little bit more about what we want to see from him next season. That's all coming up here in just a second on Locked On Blue Jackets. Okay, let's just wrap it up. What letter grade are you going to give Eric Robinson? Because we talked about this off mic a little bit, and we both were like, well, we don't know yet. We'll see how the episode goes. So the episode is gone. How do you think Eric Robinson has done this season?
Yeah. So I said last episode I wanted to hand out a D, and it was perfect that a guy like this came up because he's a guy, when we're talking about some of these prospects that play for the Monsters right now, it reminds me of how we used to talk about Eric Robinson a few years ago. So Eric Robinson is a little farther ahead along. He's had a little bit more time and a little bit more leeway for me as a fan to adjust to NHL speed and to start stacking the points. And he hasn't done that. He's done good things for the team. I like that he's friends with Johnny Gaudreau, went to the same high school as him. That's good. So, good vibes in the locker room and all. But there's an element of his game that's missing. And I just think in this conversation today, Jay, we figured that out. He needs to keep his head up more and look for some passes, look for some opportunities to get scoring for the team other than using that straight line speed to score goals, because that is dangerous as well. I like that he does that, but just get more in a passing mindset somehow and somehow try to string along some consistency. And I would be a lot more pleased, but that didn't happen for me. It hasn't happened for me yet with him. He has a huge year upcoming, but for this past season, I'm going to give him a C-.
I think I am going to go. I think I am going to bite the bullet and give him the D. I want more from Eric Robinson. And something, it occurred to me as you were talking about the Monsters there, and I was like, would I take Eric Robinson on this team over a player like, for example, a Trey Fix-Polanski? Would I take an Eric Robinson over again, this is highly kind of hypothetical at this point, would I take a guy like Eric Robinson over James Malatesta, who, by the way, scored 14 goals in 18 playoff games and then started off the Memorial Cup with a hat trick? So he now has 17 goals in 19 playoff games. So, would you have him on the team over Eric Robinson? And I think for me, the answer is yes. I think 27 is really when it starts getting to that point. And I think the same thing about Gavin Bayreuther, though, which we're going to talk about when we get to our defenseman player reviews in like 2 months when we get.
I can't wait. We're going to shred them. Those are the Ds. We're going to roll out a lot of Ds.
The mean ones. Yeah. But to me, 27 is hitting that point of there is someone younger and cheaper that can do the job that Eric Robinson is doing right now. So to me, I think it's a D. I would love to do this episode a season from now and be like, yeah, Eric Robinson gets a B+ for scoring 20 goals in this league, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think, for better or worse, I think this is the Eric Robinson that we're going to see next season, and I don't think there's much more to his game that we're going to get out of him. They could hire Scotty Bowman, and I don't know that he would be able to get much out of him.
Well, that's sad to see. That is sad to hear. It's been sad to see because, like I said, this guy has scored goals for the Blue Jackets dating all the way back to when they were playing the Lightning in the playoffs.
He's one of only, I think, 3 players that are still on the team from that playoff run.
Boone Jenner and Zach, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Those are the only 3 guys that are on the team, So it's
you can't, like, the numbers, the stat page for him is not a good stat page. You can't even spin it into a good stat page for this past year for him. Like those other 2 guys, Zach Werenski, he didn't even play this year, and I still have more positive thoughts about what he did for the team than I do Eric Robinson. And Eric Robinson had good games. It's not fair to him. He's a good player. It's just, I don't know. Is it a mental health thing with him? I don't even want to get into that because I just don't know the guy at all. That's not fair, but
I wonder if it's
the NHL's hard.
A mental health thing, but I wonder if it's his game just doesn't fit the system. You know, you see it all the time. Good players struggle on good teams because they are playing a different system to what the rest of the team is, you know? And so I wonder if he feels like a prime candidate for like a William Carlson type move of he goes to another team and then just takes off. And like Carlson, it was kind of a fluke. He scored 43 goals in his first season with Vegas and then hasn't done that since then. But to me, Eric Robinson, I think, is a fine player that doesn't fit with the system as is, which is a shame because I like Eric Robinson a lot. I think he's got I think he's got good vibes. I think he's got a cute dog. I just don't know that he fits the mold of this team.
But that's what I'm saying. And that's where I just look at him and I'm like, you're 27 years old. Can you add that? Is it too late to add that?
I think it's probably too late for Eric Robinson. Not to be like melodramatic about it. It's too late for Eric Robinson.
It's a big year for him.
Still hear his voice, you know.
It's a really big year for him, and it gets me really, really excited talking about him because I know he's gonna have. He needs to have a good year. Let's just say that if he wants to stick around.
Not the most positive season review we've done. So if Eric, if you're listening to this, we apologize. We think you can do better.
He's a great player.
Do better, but
he's a great player.
That's all
from
for
time
today.
to time.
Tomorrow we're not going to have a new episode because we record these the day before, and we're not going to record on Memorial Day because we're not going to record on Memorial Day. Hayden's busy and I'm tired, so no episode today. No new episode tomorrow. Wednesday we will be back as normal, and I believe we're going to be talking about Emil Bemstrom. So I'm sure that will be. I'm sure that'll be interesting. I have a feeling that Hayden and I will have very differing opinions on Emil Bemstrom as a player. So make sure you tune in for that. This has been Locked on Blue Jackets. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Sirius XM. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day every day. Locked on Blue Jackets continues to be free and available everywhere. You're never going to have to get behind a paywall for a Locked on Blue Jackets product. That's our promise to you. And you can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find Hayden at HaydenH971. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. If you have comments, questions, criticism, you can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Once again, no episode tomorrow. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk about Emil Bemstrom. And until then, make sure you stay locked on.